all, thanks a lot to everyone who's here. Thanks a lot for joining the next episode of JavaScript Live. Really excited today to be joined by Alex, who is a senior engineer over at Banking Circle, and he's going to be doing a really cool presentation on scaling front-end applications from monoliths to packages. Now, anyone who's attended these events before or come to one of our in-person meetups, you know that we always aim to make this as interactive as possible. So anyone who's not used a Zoom before, in terms of a webinar, there is a Q&A section at the bottom, so feel free to put your questions in there. Makes it really easy for myself and Alex to track which ones have been answered and which ones still we need to get to. What we're going to do is probably do the presentation first and do the questions at the end. But as we're going through the presentation, do feel free to obviously put your questions in there, and then we'll make sure we get to them at the end of the presentation. We're thinking probably between 20 and 30 minutes for the presentation, and then we'll do the questions afterwards. But thanks a lot for joining, and Alex, I think that's enough from me, so I'll hand straight over to you.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen. See it. So can you see?
Yep, all good.
Yeah. Oh, so thanks, Jamie, for the invite and for this great initiative to do this. Sharing like experiences and about like JavaScript available for everyone. So it's good and good to be back to talk about some subjects. Now I will talk about scaling front-end applications. And will be like more like a high-level presentation for different ways to scale front-end based on my experiences in the past. So and get like a good idea on how to do that especially for bigger projects. So I'll talk a little bit about me. Wait, I'm just trying to, So I'm Alexandre Zimerer, I'm from Brazil. Software engineer and live in Denmark for 7 years. Now I'm working as a senior software engineer in Banking Circle, but I'm working in past experiences in many like fintechs company, like in Impay and in Danske Bank. And I was already like front lead, including with each data platform. So most of the slides here and everything that I'll talk about in scale, it's based on these experiences and different experiences from different companies. So for you to have like idea of the subject, we're gonna talk like why you need to scale, when you actually need to start to scale, the difference between scale front end and the back end. Then I'll go to these models of scaling in the front end, and having like some strategies like to optimize the front end in the way that you can scale with less like bottlenecks, and talk a little bit about some bottlenecks that we have when we scale on the front end and these challenges, and give you some like use case based on this past experiences. So to summary this up, and why you need to scale the front end. First, like we have like these different models as we grow any web project or mobile, any from, let's say, web app. We started like to have this everything like together in one, let's say, node with the front end, the back end, and the database. Then we start to have like more variation as we grow the application, to have like a dedicated back end, a dedicated front end, and the database in the different like service. And then we start to have this amazing service that Google platform, Google Cloud, and Amazon started to like provide this like kind of scale your application in different ways. We start to have this like backend and database like shared in one front end, and then we start to have this microservice setup, which we can have like many backends when using communicating through APIs, and have like many database that you can like scale database as you need. But it was always like a question mark. I mean, how is the front end? How we grow the front end indefinitely and start to have like this like big repositories with many codes. So what I'm like, what is the main reason of this presentation is going through this part. Like there is a big question mark, like how we scale front end as the back end grows. So again, like to answer this question, when it's time to start to think about scale? You need to scale when like as the backend start to grow and have like API and have the concept of microservice, we start to thinking about how we're going to do in the front end. And actually it's like usually it's a pressure from who work on the back end. And when you start to have like growing the back end in services, it's like, what about the front end? What you going to do? Like just grow the code like indefinitely? No, you need to think about when you start to have this strategy in the back end to follow in the front end, because as they have like more resources and more like APIs distributed in microservice, you need to think how to communicate with them in an easy way. And if you have just like one big base code, it's gonna be like you start to have like some challenges that I would discuss more about during the presentation. So and if we have like too many people working the same project, like sometimes like 100 of developers, it can become complicated to have just like one big code and having everyone like conflicting, having working the same base code. And you have like too many code files for the structures and packages and dependencies. We start to have like start to be like a hell, especially when we need to do like things and changes and do some refactorings along with many people working the same project, it can become really like complicated to maintain this project. So then you start to question like, how are we going to scale this? And then like you have like a lot of people, right? A lot of issues. And then when you think about scale, it's when you think like, if you need to grow this more and more indefinitely, you think like, it's not going to work. We need to like alarm and start to think about like strategies to mitigate that. But what I wanted to leave it like clear here is like, you will have issues anyway, you have problems because things become like bigger, but this is a strategy to try to mitigate and distribute these problems in a way that you can like track and reduce the pain, let's say. So when you start to have like big code to everything that you need to do, commands that you run, time that you need to build a project. For example, nowadays we use like a lot of Webpack for the front end. So they need to transpile sometimes like TypeScript, run tests and everything. And all the cycle can like, depends on your base code, can take like minutes. So imagine, for example, that like based on the past experience that we have like one big monorepo that we need to just to reload the page, can take like 1 minute. So every change that you do need to wait for 1 minute. So we need to try to have a strategy to mitigate that. So when we start to have that, we need to start to think about it, how we're gonna scale the application for then solve these cases. And then you have this difference between scale front end and back end, because there's a lot of actually I think there's in the previous like JavaScript series we have some conversations about like scaling the back end, but then you have this different how to scale the front end. They're completely different. Actually, there was some people that like trying to have the same concept of like you have microservices in the back end and kind of a concept of a microservice in the front end, but it's not like the way, because you can just like split the application and have like APIs that communicate, because in the end when you have these microservices, you can in the end it's kind of unified in one. For us to use the service, it can be just like one way, and in their background they split things in a different like application. The front end is harder because there's another challenge, because the front end is the client side, it becomes a little bit more complicated. And in the back end, you always can scale resources. If you just have problems with a big database, you just like pay to have more databases and scale this automatically. You have caching strategies that you can use to like mitigate this, so as you scale and have like more complex processing of your backend. And the concept of microservice that everyone's talking about, and it's really cool because you can actually have independent projects. I've been working in company that this was so like independent that for each project that have like the same, let's say in the end API, you have many language, and then you can like try to make a lab, experiment a new language, and then you can isolate totally from other microservices. So you can have this independent backends in this concept of microservice, which is really nice, and nowadays everyone's use it, but in the front end, like we miss that, because so then to scaling the front end, I think we have like a different concept that I'll talk like more in details here. That we have like we know everyone will heard about like monolith. It's just like the usual way. But then you have this concept of modular monolith, that you have just like one monolith, but it's based on models inside. So we can manage that in a way that it's like having many repositories. You can always split the front end, but this is I'm trying like showing here like all the possible ways. But split front end can be a little bit challenging because different from the back end that you can kind of share database that is like storage. In the front end, the things happen in the client side, so it's different like to keep persist data when you have like many front end applications like splitted, it's just like divided like the code base. I will go through here like some examples. For one good example could be like e-commerce. If you have e-commerce, how are you gonna like split this e-commerce in many different applications? You can do maybe application of checkout, application of the front page, and can be kind of independent. But how they like, because in the end for the end user is just one. How you will like combine it together to have the same login, and in the end like you can repeat like a lot of code. And then we have like this package oriented. You can see already in JavaScript you have many ways to have a good way to structure our code in modules using this package. We have npm, that is a big repository of billions. Probably everyone that work in the front end use it. It's really hard nowadays. You develop a project without a dependency that use like an npm or other like places that you can have like a package. So you're going to work like them, like you're going to have like independent packages, and these packages will be maintained by different teams, and then they combine it together. They will be the application. And sometimes the package can be reuses, depend how generic it is. So it can be really it's a useful way to scaling the front end because you're kind of splitting that in minor independent projects that is have their own like life cycle, but it have challenges as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. So like going more into details into this scaling models, we always can go keep the monolith. That is a choice, because what I show here, that the other ways is not like they are challenging. They will allow you to like scale, but in the same time you'll be like hard in anyway. Like it's not easy when you have this problem to scale your applications. You make like something that is like more complex with models and dependencies. It becomes like a challenge anyway. So there's always a choice to keep the monolith and get like because when you have the monolith things, it's easier, can be slower, can be complicated, but it's everything that they are in one place. So we always like can choose like when it's time to scale or like keep the monolith while you can keep it. But going like to more like other ways and modern ways, the modular monolith is a good way to think about how you can grow your repository, because you start to have things in models, and now you have like tools that is used in the companies that have been working, and we use it like Lerna and NX. They are great. Like they can like manage the package of these models, because in the end, like you are like splitting our application in models, but it is like in the end one package. But they will be like a wrapper and abstraction on this like a package that you install. So you use them to install the package, and they will manage for you, and then they will manage the cache. That is the main thing to make like the build goes faster and distributed between these models. We have, as I said, the npm package, and npm packages you can have like a package that you can reference in your main application, and this package can be maintained. It's completely like out of your application. You just references as a dependency of your project, as we do with external projects. So having this package oriented is a way to have your like you can scale and have completely isolated silos and independent like front ends. And as I said, you can always split front-end applications, which will give you like some challenge to communicate between these applications and do not repeat yourself. So in the end, when you split the front-end application as a solution, you can combine this. For example, you can split the application and have a shared package that will be combined across these applications. So going more like into like the concept of the modular monolith is like this. You have like the root of your project, and you have the models that you can reference. And these models will talk between them, because when you have the monolith, when you are references another model, you just references in the path, like going navigating to the project. When you have this modular monolith concept, you communicate between them as package. So if the model one needs the model, if the model two needs the model one, then you're going to import the model one. And then what makes this easier than the package model, like out the completely package model using npm, is that if you have like a dependency of another model, the model is external. You need to update externally the model, and then like install the new version of this model. When you have this modular monolith, you can reference between models, and when you build, they're gonna build the new versions of the other dependencies. So they will like have a better like tracking of which version are you using, and to make changes in the dependencies to reflect in the main model that you need, like that you are testing. It's gonna be easier using this modular monolith. But the disadvantage is because it's still a monolith. Everything's gonna be in the same code base, and can be a little bit like complicated, like as like the size of the repository depending on the code base that you are like working with. The package oriented, as I mentioned, is like it's kind of the same, but like you have the root package which will reference the dependencies as external package. Talking about, for example, this like e-commerce example, we're going to have a package for checkout, a package for the front page, a package for user authorization, and then like when we import this package, they will combine and they'll become the application. And this package will have their own dependencies. Their own dependencies can be external dependencies, and you can start to have more and more like packages and people like maintaining this package, like and this changes like a lot, even like the structure of the development life cycle, because you in the end you can like have teams dedicated to each package, and you can have like completely isolated package model that you can even like if it's generic enough, put a package as open source and have the community contributing with that. So you can actually have like dedicated projects and completely like separated. They don't like, let's say, they're gonna conflict the ones that depends, but at least you have like if you have like an issue, a problem is gonna be like a problem in one package. You need to fix that package, and then you can work like more like an isolated way in the front end. So then have the model of splitting the front end. It's gonna be like this. You're gonna like have copies. Like if you have a big application, again, like if you get like a commerce example, will be like a checkout front page. So it would be different like models, not models, but not micro front end, because they already like have a term for micro front end that is not about. So you actually split. You have a big code base, and then you like have sections in like smaller code bases. And in this smaller code base, you have completed a complete full structure again of the whole project. So it can be really like you ended like reusing not reusing components. You ended like having repeating yourself with the same components. But as I said, you can have like a package model like combine with this one, and then have like split your front end, and all depends off one package. So but then like for if you choose any of those, you're gonna end it like with always like a bottlenecks when you start to scale. No, it doesn't matter which option it's your choice. So when you start to have like a big code base, and you are covering with automated tests, especially the end-to-end, that is the test that goes like in an interface, so it's low. And if you have like 100 of I don't have example of 1,000, but I have already like 100 that can take like 1 hour to run. So when you have the scale application, have many codes, you ended having this challenge, and you need to mitigate that, try to reduce the time. So and the NN package can become like if you have a lot of dependencies, can become like a little big, too big package, too many dependencies that can take like sometimes if you do npm install, and it can be like take minutes, and sometimes like it can be giga of code of your package. So you always be like a headache to update and like to manage these dependencies. And the build times to do all of this. Sometimes you need to do end-to-end tests, build a package, install and do all the process, and can be like a challenge. And there's no way like to run out of regardless of which options you choose. You need to deal with that and try like to have strategies to mitigate and like caching when it's possible. Do not run the things that is not necessary to run to reduce this bottleneck. But then like you're gonna have this challenge anyway. So the front end like strategies to mitigate like this, to have this like big base of code. You can kind of transfer the responsibilities a little bit. So one of these I was playing like about is move the business logic to GraphQL or end user style guide. It's like it's two ways that you have like to give like a different layer for the front end in the way that you split a little bit, and then you can like scale. So the scaling strategy with GraphQL, you will like instead of communicate through API, you have like a data layer, and this data layer will have all the data that sometimes when you're like building a React application, you use a lot of business logic in application to handle and manage this API data. And instead of that, you use the GraphQL that will do this part of the carrying the data and give like in the front end already like in the best way to present that data. So then we have this layer. This will reduce like a lot of code in the front end, and then but the code, all the complexity will be transferred to a new layer that is more complex to manage. You have a GraphQL server and Apollo and everything, but you will be able to scale into if we have like transferring this responsibility. Another scaling strategy that I mentioned, style guides. Style guides, it's really good because you can separate totally the design and the design code as a project. So I recommend, for example, you have a past experience doing this as a package, independent package, that you have like a website that you look for the documentation, see all the styles, and then the projects can use these styles. And then when you change this project, all the websites will reflect. If you change the brand, if you change the colors or everything, everyone's will reflect that. This is a good way to like mitigate the scaling part of the front end, because if you have a front end application big or in a big code, you're gonna have like a lot of this code like concentrated and have like style guides and these like templates and yeah, codes that is like purely design based. They need to be like transferred for a place like for dedicated to that. So this will make like a lot of easy to have like more like a consistent like a front end, and like eliminate like a lot of code that if you don't need to have this code inside your main repository, if you can have out. But it can like have challenges as well. Like you have to maintain this project if you don't have like a dedicated team and like a good culture to like they can be like outdated, and the people are going to start to do things in your own project instead of like using this style guide project, because it needs to update sometimes, can be a little complicated. And yeah, and actually I never like could like have like a full implementation of this style guides in the way that let's say I'm really like we're using the full potential of that. But yeah, but it's really it's a good way to scale and having like a dedicated front end just for the UI and styles. So we'll talk a little just like to summarize up more like a real experience that I have of some like architecture is that you had to scale this front end. So I have like two like main examples. One was like one of the experience that we have a React Native application oriented, but in package. So we have this banking app that was used like for a lot of users, that we were like having around 30 packages to maintain. That was like the dependencies of this project. 30 internal packages managed by us that we had, like, for example, like authorization package, payments package, and things that could be kind of reusable and create kind of a framework completely dependent on the end package. And the downside of this was the challenge, for example, if we have 30 packages and you need to update one dependencies, because, for example, we were using React and we had to update React, we had to update in like 30 packages, and it was really challenging to do that. but in the same times is we can like always like whenever it's possible update one package, and then have you can have like independent ways to update. And if you wanted to use an old version, you can still using the old version until the new version is good enough to you to update. So we can have like different like ways, and if you have just like as you have in a monolith, when you change something, everything will need to be changed. So this we can have like many different versions of different dependencies. So having a React Native application using that was really good, especially like the part of the design and the styles. And then we have another example of the modular monolith application using domains, using NX. We have like this big application that you need to split. So we created the concept of domains, and these domains was using NX to manage. So we have like this big, it's a big project, and the next we're doing the job to have this part. So every section of the website is a model, and this model is managed by NX. And in the end, like I'm not here to bring like no silver bullet, so it's still valid. I'm just showing here like the possibilities. Going to depend a lot of the kind of project, and the still project. I show some examples here of the ways that can work, but they're going to be always a challenging, and there's always bottlenecks as we scale and become more complex. And like another thing is like don't over engineering, because if you over engineer and in the end like you don't need to scale when you can, like you don't need to think about scale when you're starting something. And I had like a lot of this problem in my past experiences, that we started to think about this, like how we're going to scale without even to have like users in a project. So it's always good to start like simple in one repository. You don't need like already to decide this up front. So we don't over engineer. Always try to, but we as developers, engineers, we love to sometimes complicate stuff, and we need like to train our brains to like to keep it simple. And scale is all about divide to conquer. So we always need like to get like a bigger problem and split like in a smaller one. The concept of microservice in the backend, use that, and in the end, like it's what we need to do in the front end as well. Try to divide the problems and the layers in the front end, so you can like have they're independent, and you are able to scale and grow it. So yeah, I think this is the conclusion. And I want to just like to mention that we have like in Banksicle's a position for the front-end developer. So you can just like look in the LinkedIn. I will leave like here my contact. It's just like reach out if you like want to join. And so, and thank you for listening, for the presentation. And like, yeah, I'm open for the way for questions. This is my GitHub, and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I have like a blog for a long time. It's just like Alexandre Magno, and you can look at a little bit about my posts and like some tutorials and everything about software development, especially JavaScript. And thanks, Jamie, for the opportunity again.
Not a problem at all. My pleasure. Thanks a lot for the presentation, Alex. We've already got a few questions through, which is obviously a good sign. So we'll get started with the questions. So firstly, from Frey, good to see you, Frey. He said, can you explain the difference between modules and packages in the monolith approach?
In a monolith approach?
Yeah. Can you explain the difference between modules and packages in the monolith approach?
Yeah. So models, packages is dependency, external dependency. So when we have an npm package, is going to be inside your node models, and you have there in some repositories. So then like depends of your infrastructure of your project, use like the npm, or you can use other like GitHub has the package like to host the package. So it's completely independent. And then in your main application, you need to point to the version that is released on that for that model. And then having the modular monolith in NX, you have these models inside. The user concept, I think we are being like to this, like being digging to the code in NX. They use a kind of alias that you can like references models as like as a package, but as internal package. It's not going to be like inside the node model. So it's part of the project. And having like npm package, you have completely isolated package that you need to install and point to the version. In the monolith model, when you run the commands, for example, of this package made like NX, you will build like you will update everything, and they will like know how to point the references of these models. But then you have like in the models, in the modular package, you can still have like external package. You always have it because, for example, React is a package that you depend on. So that's like the different. The model, it's like if you don't have like something that is external, because in the model they are self-contained and they are part of the repository. The code will be there, and in the package, the code will be in another repository, for example.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Question from Indre. So Indre's asked around a bit more of an in-depth definition on micro front ends. We've actually done a webinar in the past, Indre, on exactly that. So I'll send you the link to that straight after the meeting. She has also said, what would you say are the signs to look for on the front end side to identify a potential part of the front end that could be its own package?
Things that is reused could be a potential package, but don't need to be just like reused is one of the reasons. Reused because reused you can have, for instance, like in many places they use the same and can be generic like enough to support many of like things that you need for your project. But another thing is like areas and domains that you can like split and isolate it. I always give like the example of like that's easy to see when you do like e-commerce that you have like, for example, the checkout. The checkout is a process that you share the same components, and it's like one kind of flow that you can have something. And if you have, for example, a banking area, for example, in the place that I worked already, we have like sessions that it's completely like sessions in the menu that are completely different areas that can be used as a package. But like the main reason of the package is it's something that could be like a reused. If you do like a split, if you do a model that just split the code and you need to have like shared packaging, then you need this package will be something that is shared. But in the model that is more like modular monolith or like package oriented, in the package oriented way, everything could be like a package, and the main package would just like use the external packages.
Amazing, thank you very much. Question from Marta. Firstly, thank you for the presentation. Have you ever worked with micro front ends approach, e.g. single spar, and could you share your opinion about it?
Yeah, good, great question, Marta. What happened that I just like figure out this micro front ends? Yeah, I already heard in the past, but never like looking about it. But yesterday when I was preparing the presentation, I was like researching about it, and then I found the micro front ends because I was about to mention micro front ends is a different concept, and I could see like the concept of micro front end is more like you have independent like components. It's more like style guide in the style guide area, because you can like having smaller part, for example, a payment with credit card model that is like that micro front end that can like leave alone. They are like completely isolated, and they have like and we have this concept for the micro front end frameworks as well. So instead of, for example, we have React, we have like some subset of React that just have some part of React. So we have this concept of micro frameworks, and the micro front end is more like, I think, UI based. I just like have like a general like reading about it, but I will like look more into it. But yeah, there's some good posts about it if you look for micro front end. But it was not just like from something in scale in a sense that you need to grow it more. Actually, it's more like to have a more structured way in a page, in a let's say in an application, but in the concept just like for a component. I'm talking about scaling is more like how you do like a big repository in a lot of code, and micro frontend apply like in the design of the one page and how you deal with that. That's what I could understand.
Mm-hmm. Another question from Miko has said, can you recommend a good course or article about how to approach micro front ends with Angular?
Miko, I will own you because I've been like a while without like working with Angular. But yeah, but probably there's the same for example, I think yeah, the guy that have that I read about the concept of micro front end, he was like it's general concept, so I think you can apply with Angular as well.
Cool. Question from Bartosz said, can you share your experience or criteria for selecting the tech stack for a scalable front-end project?
Good. Depending of like which like way you choose of this one that I explained. But if you go, for example, for modular monolith, you yeah, the tech stack is really important because I've been working with Lerna, and we have like a lot of challenges with Lerna when we started to use it. But it was one of the first, and then like I think the NX is a little bit more like the evolution of Lerna. So choosing the Lerna, we have like a really long build process in our code, and then it was really hard like to move to another framework. But now, for example, the NX are like integrated with Lerna, so we can kind of combine this stack. But nowadays, I would recommend to use NX when you have this modular monolith. And for the package model, like just like depends of the infrastructure that you're working, because we work in the past with GitLab, for example. GitLab has their own like host for npm package, repository for npm package. So then I was using that. So if to use package, you're gonna use JavaScript. Packages is a basic concept, so you don't have like to choose like a tech stack. But if you do like a modular monolith, I would use now like NX for yeah. I'm talking like about React projects. Focus on that, so I would use NX.
Awesome. Final question for now. So if anyone does have any other questions, please make sure you get them in while Alex is answering this one. From Archon, who says, hi Alex, great presentation. In which cases will the fine-grained modular architecture work?
Thank you, Archon. So the fine-grained modular, the work, I think when you have, as I mentioned, I think the main thing is the size of your project. If you start to have too many like areas, if it's a complex, if it's a big company that have, let's say, just one system that has everything on one repository, and it start to be like impossible to manage one repository, and you have like, it's not like when you start to develop and you need like take like a long time. The advantage of the monolith, I would say that you don't have too much dependency, so usually to run the project is easy, but to run things in the project and make the project, you can make the project work, but everything that you do, it takes time because it's slow, because there's a many code to process, there's a many things to check, so become a little bit slower. So the modular monolith would make sense if you have that, if you had to grow like a lot, not like if you're not growing yet, but actually start to having this like big, and then you can have a way to have namespaces or domains or areas, things that you can kind of split and start to divide your application, which makes sense. But I think in all the cases that you have like something start too big as possible to divide, it's just think about it. So it depends a lot of which project you're working. If I'm talking like about financing area in banks, usually it's kind of like the low ones payments, like the withdrawal, investing. So each area becomes like a model that you can like work like independently. So I think it's just like depending on domain, you divide this domain in smaller domains when things get bigger.
Perfect. Another question has just come through from Nikolai. In the modular approach, do the modules share one single store, or do each of them have their own? If answer is 2, how do we avoid fetching duplicate data?
Good, Nikolai. Yeah, this is actually like a real case in issues that you can like face, like how to share things between them. What like one approach that I've been working on, and it works. Like it does have downside as well, which is like having maybe models that will deal with this fetching data. So you can have submodels of the models in this structure. So if you have a model, or you can have like a root model, depends of your application, that will like take care of fetching the data. So all the models, we use that as dependencies. But depending on the project that you have, you wanted to isolate that. For example, in my case, we had to isolate in every domain we have the on call for the specific APIs. So I don't need to call APIs of another area. So we have our own model which fetch the data. And then our specific models that like handles the page, they will call these APIs. And then we call just one API place, one single point. So when we update there, the models that depend on that will be updated as well. So I think it's a good approach to have like a model to fetch the data. Yeah.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you very much, Alex. So as things stand, we haven't got any other questions. Oh, one's just come through. Perfect timing. Oh, it's just Nikolai saying thank you. You're very welcome. So first of all, thank you very much, Alex, obviously for taking your time out of your day, out of your evening to give this presentation. The sign of a good presentation is a lot of questions, and we've had lots of them, so thank you very much. This full episode, if anyone has friends or colleagues who you think this would be really valuable for, people who may have had to miss it today due to not being available, it will be released on our YouTube channel next week. So keep an eye out on the YouTube channel. I'll make sure to send it out on LinkedIn as well in case you did miss it. Also, if there is anyone else in attendance that has seen what Alex has done today, feels like it's something they like to get involved in the future, do a little bit of public speaking, please do drop me a message. We're always looking for people to talk about anything JavaScript which you're passionate about, really. So yeah, thank you very much again, Alex, for your time. And sorry.
Just everyone is like free to reach out to me if you have any questions and anything about and curiosity and anything about web development. So feel free.
Amazing. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Alex. Really appreciate that. And I'll speak to you all very soon.
Yeah. See you.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.